one thing fun about being a journalist is you have a front row seat to history because that's what it is.
Yeah.
So it can be very exciting.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the route that I would like to go in it. Is I love writing, and if I can do both at the same time, that'd be great. Because when it came down to deciding what I wanted to do, I couldn't make up my mind because I love them both. So I figured I'll take a class of each, and we'll see where that takes me.
Well, good for you.
Well, thank you. It's a little bit hard because I'm all well. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I interrupted you.
Oh no. And sometimes you get sent out onto a story and you're like, okay, what do I know nothing about this topic or this person, and you learn to be a quick study on a whole bunch of things that you never knew about. So it's always kind of fun.
And I did see that you write a lot about politics and government and stuff like that. Why was that kind of the realm that you went into? Because I love politics, but I don't know if I could write about it.
Well, I spent my whole career in Nevada. I was with, and I'm pretty much retired now.
Mm-hmm.
I had surgery on my neck back in last July, and that kind of took me out for 6 months. So it was kind of like forced retirement, but it was okay because after 30 plus years, I was like, it was okay. It was time to go.
Yeah.
But being in Nevada for so long, it was, for a long time, I also wrote about a lot of natural resource issues,
Mm-hmm.
State lands, public lands,
Mm-hmm.
Endangered species, mining, all those things that, have, how should I say it? A lot of public interest, and there's a lot of different views as to how all those things should be managed. So it was just kind of how just being here in Nevada, it was just everything that, I had covered. And, then when it just kind of morphed into then, covering the legislature and covering politics, because it all goes hand in hand.
Yeah, it does.
So
why writing? Why journalism?
Why journalism? I like to write.
Mm-hmm.
Why journalism? That's a very good question. I don't know if today, unless it's between you and me, if I had to do nowadays, if I was looking for of what you do and writing to there's always this sense of trying to, number one, make people understand how their government works, because a lot of people don't know how their government works.
Yeah.
And trying to and holding politicians accountable.
Okay.
They have to be held accountable because just because they're elected does not mean they're infallible.
Yeah.
It does not mean that they're always right. And yeah, sometimes they do need to have their feet held to the fire.
Yeah. And it's funny how media has taken a lot of hits in the last 2 years, between President Trump and, the coverage of that election in its entirety. And I would say even now, as it's going on, as I watch the news and I see everything about the administration, media tends to be the ones that are fingered for, representing wrongly. So what would you say to, people my age and younger who are looking at journalism and, a lot of times they're seen to be the enemy? What would be your advice for that?
Well, I think, the tendency is always to, blame the messenger.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's very short-sighted. I don't think, and there is a difference, the media these days is just so, there's a difference between the media and the hardworking journalists who are, work hard every day to, show the truth.
Yeah.
And then you have the talking heads on television, which there's a difference.
Yeah.
There's a difference between, the people who were, you watch, cable news and
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty ugly out there.
Yeah.
It really is. And but I don't think you can paint all journalists, into, a box like that, because I would say 95% of them are hardworking. They are not biased, even though, a lot of detractors would say they are.
Mm-hmm.
And they work very hard to, portray accurately what is going on.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's quite a different environment than, I would say, the heyday of, let's say when I was starting out, when it was how should I say it? Just, you wrote, you wrote the news.
Yeah.
And that doesn't, and covering the news does not mean just, parroting what a politician says, because,
Mm-hmm.
we're trained to know what they said last week and what they said 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
We know when they flip-flopped, and it's very easy to tell when they're lying because facts don't lie.
Yeah.
So
you mentioned when you first started and now. So one huge thing is that nowadays everything's online. Everything's in the internet, and you have a huge presence. I was looking at your Twitter and you had like 14,000 posts, I think.
Probably.
And I was like, wow, how hard was it to adopt your style when you first began to this now completely digital online age?
It was a big learning curve.
Mm-hmm.
I find Twitter is fun now.
Yeah.
It's a good way to get out breaking news.
Mm-hmm.
Digitally, and Twitter and Facebook. Most breaking news now, if you're breaking a story, you break it first on Twitter.
Yeah.
And but then again, if you're going to break something like that, you better be right, because there's no calling it back.
That's true.
And that was, being with the wire service, that's one thing I learned very, very quickly, because when you push the button on a story, it went everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And there was, if you made a mistake or you got something wrong, God forbid, I mean, that's always a worst nightmare. There's no calling it back.
Yeah.
It's out there. You can write a correction and you can repost the story and say, this is, we're reposting it to correct, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But that first version is still out there, and it always will be. So you learn that you've got to be, think twice before you push that button,
Mm-hmm.
Because accuracy matters, and if you're not accurate, it very quickly destroys your credibility.
Yeah.
And if you don't have credibility, you're not a good journalist.
Yeah. So would you rather be doing a high pressure thing like the wire service or even doing Reuters or Associated Press, or would you rather be doing a small hometown paper?
Oh, well, for me, I mean, it was always a thrill to be with the wire service.
Mm-hmm.
It was high pressure, definitely, but I kind of cut my teeth on it at a early stage of my career, and I loved it.
Yeah.
So it was, a couple of years. My last couple of years, I left the Associated Press in 2014. I left in June of 2014, right after my mom died. I needed some time and, just decided that I needed to get out of I call it the jewel wheel.
Yeah.
That never stopped. And so I left the wire service and I started working for a newspaper, the Las Vegas Review-Journal, which, it's the largest newspaper in the state.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. It was different because I had more leeway into writing lengthier articles than I could with the wire service, and didn't have to do everything. I mean, with the wire service, you're pretty much you do it all. You do crime, you do floods, you do everything.
Yeah.
Everything and everything, and so it was a good change for me, and I really enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so they're just different.
Yeah.
They're just different, and I enjoy each of them. I think there is a big demand and a need for local journalism.
Yeah.
Because those are the people who keep tabs of what your local government is doing.
Yep.
Nobody else cares what's going on in Podunk.
It's true.
But the people who live there do.
Yeah.
And it's up to, you rely on your local papers to, tell people what they need to know. And what they need to know is not always what they want to know.
So if you were looking back at history, any year, age, moment of the past, what do you wish you had been there to cover? And what might you have said when covering it?
Oh, jeez. Well, that's a really tough question. That's a really tough question. There's just been so many, going back through history.
Yeah.
Just so many bellwether, events. I'm going to have to think about that one, Heather.
Okay. I was thinking of it and I'm going, wow, like I'm thinking about history and I'm thinking about some of the things that happened. And I'm like, I wonder what she would have wanted to cover. Um, is there an issue right now? Is there something right now that you're really passionate about, that really excites you to write about?
Well, I think a big issue right now that's, you don't know whether, the whole gun control issue.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at that, and I look at, the kids out of, Parkley, Florida,
Yeah.
and what they have done just in the past couple weeks, going from such tragedy and, getting more than 500,000 people, um, to rally in Washington, D.C.,
Yeah.
it's like that is phenomenal. And I equate that to, the Vietnam War era.
Yeah.
And having, it was the next generation that, helped bring about the end to the Vietnam War. And, we don't know where, the whole gun control issue is going to go, but my goodness, I've not seen that kind of passion in politics.
Yeah.
In a long time, and I just applaud them for what they're trying to do, and
Yeah.
it's just fun to, it's like, wow, we haven't had that kind of uprising by kids, what they say,
Yeah.
calling them kids. Well, they're pretty darn smart,
They are. Yep.
and they're very motivated, and there's a lot of passion on all sides of the issue, and but maybe they can bring about compromise, change,
Yeah.
something. So it'll be very interesting to watch.
Yeah. So have you tried any other kinds of writing? Any kind of creative writing or nonfiction or fiction?
I've always wanted to try fiction, and every now and then there's, a story in my head, but no, I have not put any thoughts down. I keep thinking, oh, one of these days.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because there's almost, I feel like when you want to write, when you feel like you like writing, you're just about wanting to do anything. Like, would I like to write an article? Yes. Would I like to write a story? Yes. Would I like, you know what I mean? Because they're two totally different things. And I was realizing when I was reading some of your articles that, the figurative language that you have to use, the imagination that you have to have, and the creativity in, what I was seeing was a picture in my head of what you were describing. And I think that's so cool, but how in the world do you grow something like that? Like, is that an innate talent, or is it something that you think through time you can learn?
Make no mistake, writing is a very painful process.
Yeah.
I've always found it to be a very painful process. There's nothing easy about it. Anyone who tries to tell you it's easy has never been on deadline.
Yeah.
When you've got 15 minutes to pound out a story, and I think there's nothing easy about it.
Yeah.
But I think but after a while you kind of get in the zone, and once you get your lead down, you're off to the races.
Yeah.
And it's usually the first paragraph that is the most challenging.
I can understand that. Yep. I was actually reading one of your articles, and it's from 1993.
Oh my goodness.
I know. But it was actually about a couple who had gotten stranded in the snow, and that they walked 12 miles just to safety with their 5-month-old.
Oh, yes.
And
Oh, yes.
it's funny because I was reading your Twitter, and I saw that you had said on a couple of sites actually that you admired the tenacity of human spirit. And I was reading this article and I was like, well, yep, this is it. This is part of it.
Well, yeah.
When you cover something like that, and it's, you know that it's going to be emotional for the people involved when you're interviewing them, but it's so going to be something that they read. You know, they're going to go online and they're going to read it. You know, what does that do to you inside when it comes to then putting pen on paper, you know, or writing those paragraphs? What goes through your mind?
I think in the heat of the moment, I don't really, that's not a consideration.
Mm-hmm.
As far as, well, and I mean, it all depends on what you're writing about.
Yeah.
You know, so many times, I mean, covering tragedies, covering, you know, I mean, I covered, you know, a mass shooting at an IHOP restaurant in Carson City, and you know, you go to those things, and your professionalism kicks in. You have a job to do, and you do it. And then somewhere down the line, I mean, you cry.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, reporters are human, and you know, things that we cover, they do affect you. You know, we're not immune to human emotion.
Yeah.
And the gravity of, you know, things that we have to cover.
Yeah. So
I don't know if that answered your question.
It totally did. You're good. How do you think your upbringing influenced, you know, how you write? You know, you being on a farm, and I know that I've been told for years the hard work that the farm was, and, you know, kind of the closeness of your family. How do you think all of that influenced you?
Well, I think growing up on the farm, I mean, it you know, made me very in tune to nature, to hard work, to you know, human emotions. I mean, there were good years, there were bad years.
Yeah.
What it took to, you know, you know, on the farm, you're always fighting the weather.
Yeah.
You know, and praying that the rain would hold off for another couple hours until, you know, the particular crop cake was in. So, you know, I think all of that kind of made me just appreciate hard work.
Yeah.
And that everything takes hard work. There's no easy in life.
Yeah.